I'm moving back to my childhood home next month. Out of the blue, my eldest son Bob showed up at my house with a smirk. He told me his wife, Catherine, was busy shopping on her phone at home, letting their 2 kids run wild. Then he casually said, "Please take care of the 2 grandkids." After all the times they ignored me, they suddenly changed their tune when they found out I was living in a condo. I felt the need to teach them a lesson about the real world not always going their way. My name is Janet. This year, I turned 64. 2 years ago, I lost my husband, so now I live alone in the house where I raised my 2 boys. My sons, aged 38 and 36, have their own families and live in nearby apartments. Siblings are often so different, someone once said, and that's precisely the case in our family. My eldest son turned out to be flashy and careless, while my younger son grew up to be modest and dependable. Bob and his wife Catherine were blessed with 2 kids, but unfortunately, David and his wife haven't been able to have children. It seems there might be an issue with one of them, but I always made sure not to bring it up. However, Catherine, whenever she meets David's wife, insensitively teases, "Oh, still no baby? You better hurry up," and often suggests that David's wife should practice while they can and pushes her own children onto her. But David's wife loves children and, ignoring the insensitive comments from her sister-in-law, looks after the kids with joy. I often thought it would have been better if it were the other way around. To begin with, when my husband was hospitalized, even when I asked Bob and his wife to visit, they'd say, "Oh, we're busy. Besides, you must have free time without having to care for him, right? Can you babysit for a day or 2 and just drop off their children?" On the other hand, David and his wife visited regularly. David's wife would reassure me, "Don't be down, Mrs. Janet. He'll get better. Do you want us to stay overnight if it's not too much trouble?" She cooked for me when I was emotionally down and also took care of my grandkids during that time. Bob and his wife were actually on a trip to Las Vegas, gambling away at casinos. Upon return, without asking about the kids, they immediately asked to borrow money, saying, "We lost everything. We're a bit tight this month. Can you help us out?" I held back my anger and firmly declined. "We don't have any money, just look at this old house." Catherine looked around my 60-year-old house and laughed. "Right? I mean, who still has turn faucets nowadays? So outdated," she added. "Well, at least it's old, so we don't worry about the kids breaking stuff." Even when I bought presents for my adorable grandkids on their birthdays or Christmas, Bob and Catherine never thanked me. Instead, they just complained, "This is kind of lame. Couldn't you have gotten something cooler?" In reality, I went to the toy store with the grandkids and bought what they chose. Being blamed for having bad taste was simply unbearable. I wanted to see my adorable grandkids, and I was concerned about whether Bob and Catherine were taking proper care of them. Catherine works and often asks me, "Can you pick up the kids from daycare?" She seems to frequently skip her duties to go out drinking with friends. Bob, on the other hand, seems to leave all child-rearing to Catherine and doesn't help at all. On the days I pick them up, the grandkids often end up staying overnight, and I often drop them off at daycare the next morning. Even so, Catherine doesn't thank me and says, "You live alone, Mrs. Janet, so you must be happy taking care of the grandkids. Thanks and see ya." The 2 children were so used to being at my place that they sometimes fussed when it was time to go home. Of course, spending time with my grandkids was a joy, but considering Bob and Catherine's attitude towards parenting, I couldn't help but worry. The final straw between me and Bob's family was when I had to be admitted for some medical tests due to prolonged fatigue. Bob and Catherine called, which was rare. Apparently, my grandkid was worried and wanted to hear my voice. "Grandma, are you in the hospital? Does it hurt?" came the lisping voice of my grandchild, and I couldn't help but smile. "It's okay, they're just checking me out. Thank you." "Come back soon, I'm being a good boy." After my grandson's voice faded away, I waited a moment, and it seemed they had left the phone off the hook because I began to hear Bob and Catherine's conversation. Really, I can't deal with taking care of the elderly. David can handle that, right? He doesn't have kids and surely has some extra money, doesn't he? Well, yeah, that's probably for the best. Mom doesn't have much money anyway. Honestly, what's the use of an old person without money? Just a burden, right? They must have thought they hung up the phone as I could clearly hear their candid remarks. I mean, how can she even live in that old shack? If it were me, I'd have left a long time ago. Mom has always been frugal, never even bought decent clothes. It was embarrassing growing up. I knew they didn't think highly of me, but hearing it so blatantly was heart-wrenching. I couldn't help but respond, "I'm sorry to have disappointed you." Hearing my voice, Catherine chuckled without a hint of guilt. "Oh, Janet, were you listening? Oops, we didn't hang up." Bob, seemingly unbothered, said, "Well, it's the truth. Why was I born into such a plain family? I've always felt like I drew the short straw when it came to parents. I had tried to raise them without spoiling them, but it seemed to have backfired." I sighed and simply said, "I'm going to hang up now," and ended the call. As it turned out, my hospital tests didn't show any issues. I was just exhausted. I was set to return home safely. On the day I was discharged, a Saturday, David was working, so his wife accompanied me. However, when we got home, the door was unlocked, and my 2 grandkids were playing in the living room alone. They're 3 and 5 years old, so of course, the place is a mess. "Grandma, welcome back." They ran up to me, but Bob and Catherine were nowhere in sight. "Where's your mom and dad?" David's wife asked, and they replied, "They said they're cleaning the house and told us to stay here and behave." David's wife and I exchanged glances, knowing full well that Bob and Catherine wouldn't clean. As we quietly went upstairs, we found them rummaging through my drawers. "What are you doing?" When I shouted at them, they coolly turned around. "Oh, Janet, you're back. We didn't know you were being discharged today." Catherine gave a bright smile, and Bob said in an unusually kind tone, "Why didn't you tell us you were being discharged? I would have come to pick you up." Sensing my discomfort, Catherine handed me a document, saying, "You're quite sneaky, Janet, hiding this from us." It was a copy of a lease for a condo on the 50th floor of a tower nearby. Bob, grinning, said, "It's like $3,000 a month. Why'd you keep this a secret? Did you use Dad's inheritance or something? If so, we have a right to it too." After glancing over the document again, he confidently declared, "We'll move into the family home next month." When I responded with a confused "What?" Bob said, "Well, you are getting older. You're hospitalized this time too. Living alone is a concern. You've been saying it for a while now, right?" He then looked to Catherine for agreement, and she chimed in, "Exactly. This house is old, and if anything happened, it'd be a mess." Making a concerned face, it seemed like they both had completely forgotten about the phone call from a few days ago. How forgetful can they be? And why were they looking for a house behind my back in the first place? Seeing our disbelief, Catherine winked and cheekily said, "Do take care of the grandkids, will you?" The usually quiet daughter-in-law finally lost her temper. "Hold on. What's going on? You're just going to barge into the condo that my mother-in-law rented. That's way out of line. What were you even thinking?" But Bob and his wife didn't even flinch. I mean, it's kind of funny thinking of Mom living in a fancy condo, right? She'd stand out like a sore thumb. If we live with her, it'll look better, don't you think? Catherine added, "You wouldn't understand if you don't have kids. Moms like me want to raise our children in a decent place. I'm saying this for the kids. Surely you'd agree that every day would be more fun with the grandkids around," she said, attacking David's wife who didn't have children. "You people," David's wife exclaimed, biting her lip in frustration, readying to say something more. However, I stopped her with a hand gesture. "It's all right. Thank you. Can I handle this?" I then confronted Bob and his wife. "Next month works for you?" I asked. "I'll be ready." David's wife looked at me in surprise, but after catching a significant glance from me, she seemed to understand and kept quiet. Unaware of our silent exchange, Bob and his wife cheerfully said, "All right, we've decided. Let's get ready for the move. We want furniture that's fitting for a luxury apartment. Should we head to a high-end furniture store now?" "That sounds great. Oh, and Janet, please take care of the kids for us," they joyfully said and left. Seeing the worried look on David's wife's face, I winked at her, imitating Catherine, and told her about my upcoming plan. A plan to teach them that not everything goes as one expects. The next month arrived, and Bob and his wife eagerly informed me about their moving day. "We're going to live in that sunny room. We bought all new furniture and appliances. Don't bring anything outdated, okay?" Both of them were very excited, picturing their luxury condo life. Okay, I got it. I'll make sure everything's prepared," I casually replied and started my own moving preparations. As instructed, I discarded all the old furniture and belongings, minimizing my possessions. I've always heard that as you get older, it becomes harder to part with things, so I took this as a perfect opportunity to declutter, especially for the sake of my children. On the day Bob was set to move, I was busy since morning unpacking my own belongings. Since my phone was on silent, I didn't notice any incoming calls. When noon arrived and I decided to take a break, I checked my phone. To my surprise, there had been relentless calls from Bob since 9:00 a.m. Realizing this, I teasingly stuck out my tongue and called Bob back. He answered immediately, yelling, "Why weren't you picking up?" "Oh, I'm sorry, my phone was on silent." "So, what happened?" "What happened? We went to the condo, and when we rang the doorbell, some stranger answered asking who we were." "The luxury condo? Did you go there?" "Well, yeah, we said we were moving to the family home, remember? We had a huge argument with the person in that apartment. The police even got involved. It was so embarrassing." "Where are you, Mom?" "I'm in my new place." "What? Then why is someone else living there? You said you were moving to the family home, right?" That's why I cleaned it up for you. I assumed you had the keys. Feel free to use it however you like. Oh, I'll transfer the deed soon." "Wait a minute, that family home. You don't mean—" "Yes, the one you grew up in. That's the family home, isn't it?" After a brief pause, I could hear Catherine's voice in the background. "What are you doing?" "The movers are saying they'll charge us extra if we make them wait any longer. Hurry up and vacate the condo." "Oh no, the furniture delivery is here. Hey, that's our luxury bed. What are you going to do?" Hearing her frantic voice, I couldn't help but almost burst out laughing. It's a pity I couldn't share this moment with David's wife. Bob, with a trembling voice, muttered, It wasn't here, the family home, then." Catherine's puzzled voice could be heard. "What? That family home? It seems to be our old house." After another pause, Catherine, having finally understood the situation, exclaimed in disbelief, "What the heck?" I replied, trying to hold back my laughter, "Just move your things there. I'm busy with unpacking. Take care." I was about to hang up when Bob interjected, "Hold on. Where are you now, Mom?" "Why would I tell you that? If you come here, I won't be pleased. If I need something, I'll come over. Bye." Bob continued to protest, but I simply hung up. Keeping my phone on silent, I continued unpacking in my new apartment. Turns out that luxury condo contract was just a provisional one, and I canceled it the day after Bob found out. It hurt to lose the deposit, but it was much more infuriating to see Bob and his wife have their way. I've always admired those luxury condos with top-tier security and amenities. I decided to give it a shot. However, I soon realized it might have been a bit too extravagant for me. So, this incident was the push I needed to reconsider. Now I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment with assisted living features. It even has a gym and 24/7 concierge service. It's perfect for me living alone. Bob and his wife thought I was broke, but in reality, I've been studying and investing while being a homemaker and had managed to earn enough for both my children's education. After my husband passed away, a hefty life insurance payout and inheritance came through. Investing half of that sum turned out to be quite profitable. I had decided to take a leap of faith and try something adventurous, but I guess God always has a plan. Living in that luxury condo, I must have gotten a bit too carried away. Anyway, I thought it all turned out for the best and filled David's wife in on everything that happened today. She laughed heartily, saying, "Oh, that's hilarious. I would have loved to see Bob and Catherine's faces at that moment. I wish I had seen it too." We both burst out laughing. Then David's wife curiously mentioned, "But it's odd, isn't it? Bob and Catherine don't work for any big-name companies, yet they act so posh. How can they afford such a lifestyle?" Indeed, while David and his wife both work for reputable companies, Bob works for some no-name firm, and Catherine, she's been in and out of jobs from some temp agency. Despite all this, they were always buying designer brands. I always wondered where they got the money from. Later on, it turned out they were drowning in debt. They had likely been searching my house, hoping I had some hidden assets. They're just plain gold diggers in the end. Having no place else to go, they reluctantly moved into the old family home they once mocked, filling it with mismatched luxury furniture and electronics. When I tried to discuss changing the deed through my attorney, Bob proposed, "Since I can't afford the property taxes, could you possibly rent it to me? Maybe for about $200 a month." It's ironic he was aiming to live in a $3,000 a month luxury apartment, yet now he's haggling over $200. Reluctantly, I proposed $700, and they grudgingly agreed. Even at that rate, it's a steal for that area. Neighbors say they often hear the two of them getting drunk and arguing loudly. I was concerned about their two kids, but David's wife occasionally checked on them and updated me, saying, "They seem okay for now, but they mentioned they missed their grandma and looked sad." I had been considering visiting them soon, but before I could, Catherine disappeared, apparently running off with another man. Bob was left devastated and became distrustful of women. His once confident demeanor faded. There were rumors that Catherine, heavily made up, was spotted hanging on to men in the city's nightlife scene, but nothing's been confirmed. After Catherine left, David's wife, Bob, and I discussed the kids' future. Bob admitted he couldn't raise them on his own. Indeed, without someone to maintain the house, it was in utter chaos. David and his wife kindly offered to adopt the kids. The process went smoothly, and they're now David's children. Since Bob hadn't finalized his divorce from Catherine and she hadn't been officially missing for 7 years, he couldn't remarry. Moreover, the debt collectors are more aggressive than ever. He's now silently working his day job and takes a night shift at a convenience store to make ends meet. It seems he pawned most of his luxury items. The confident man I once knew looked like a shadow of his former self. Whenever I'd bring him some food, he'd sometimes tear up as he ate. It appears he's finally started to understand human emotions. When David's wife visits with the kids, he'd gratefully say, "They're growing up so well. Thank you." I still hold out hope that someday he'll find someone kind and understanding, but maybe I'm just being a hopelessly optimistic mom.